Welcome, Zanzi, to yet another episode of Defense in Focus. My name is Gibone Ramasimung, and I get the privilege to be your host today, a podcast where you can get everything about the South African National Defence Force, its security and innovation that we are busy with. But today in studio, I have amazing guests that will tell us about joint operations that we have in the South African National Defence Force. As you all know, we have the South African Army, the South African Air Force, the South African Navy, and the South African Military Health Services. But today in studio, I have General Sizani and General Thulare. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Kibone.
Good afternoon, Kibone.
How are you doing today? Are you happy to see me? Are you happy to be here to speak to our audiences today?
No, thank you very much. We're pleased to be here. I think it's an opportunity for us to clarify what we do with JOPS, and we feel good. It's feel good to be here. Thanks.
All right, just for the sake of our guests, of our viewers, we would like to find out, who are you? Who is General Thulare and who is General Sizani? We'll start with you, General Thulare.
Let me say that I think we should have started with General Sizani because he is technically my boss.
Okay.
I'm the General Officer Commanding Joint Operations Headquarters, which is responsible for the command and operation of command and control of operations.
Okay.
On behalf of Chief Joint Operations.
Okay, General Sizani.
No, thank you very much, ma'am. Well, I'm Major General Sizani. I'm Chief Director Operations, and I'm responsible for the articulation of all operations on behalf of Chief of Joint Operations. And we also ensure that we plan for current and future operations and give strategic direction for the articulation at the level of General Thulare. Thank you.
General Sizani, you speak to us about operations. If you were to give us a background on what is joint operations and its role in the Department of Defense or in the SANDF at large?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ma'am, joint operations, it is the highest pinnacle division of the SANDF that plan, conduct current and future operations on behalf of the Chief of the Joint Operations. It is responsible for the interpretation of the foreign policy task and translate them into military tasks and objectives and execute it in furtherance of the national security and the foreign policy of the country. Thanks.
And the execution, General Thulare, of joint operations in what General Sizani is speaking about in terms of you interpreting what the Constitution of South Africa is saying in terms of joint operations within the Defence Force. What is that? What does that look like?
Let me say that in short, at joint operation, there's two levels. You have got the division, and then you have got the headquarters, which is where I am.
Okay.
General Sizani is at the division. So they do the strategic direction in terms of operations, which is the interpretations in terms of the policies and etc. And then once that it is done, it is then sent to the level 3, which we do the execution.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the directive of these operations, General Sizani, you speak about future operations. How do you plan for future operation, and where does that stem from in terms of, there's a operation where, because I feel like joint ops comes in where there's a need and you are sent there. You don't create operations, but then you speak about future operations. What is that?
No, thank you very much, ma'am. Ma'am, future operation emanates from the state of readiness of South Africa for any exigencies. We interpret the changing nature of conflict. We reposition South Africa to be ready to deal with any form of conflict that may arise. Now, future operations to us further entails South Africa being ready with contingencies that are responsive to the changing nature of conflict. And in the external domain. In the internal domain, we assess the situation through the intelligence agencies, and we come up with contingencies to respond to any exigencies be it directed to humanitarian disaster, public health, or the eruption of possible conflict in support of other government department. Hence, you have joint operations. Thanks.
All right. And you went right into where I wanted to go to in terms of departmental help that joint operations get involved in. So what are the successes that you, as joint ops, have achieved since the beginning of the SANDF? How many successes have you gone through? What are those? I think the public wants to know that the kind of work that we do that is beneficial to the country, to the region, to international relations.
Let me say that if one looks back since 1994, there's been a number of successes. Successes in terms of external operations as well as internal operations. Let me put it this way, that internally we deploy in border safeguarding, which is along the 7 borders of South Africa in terms of the provinces. I think the successes that we have had, though we normally don't get the credit, is that we try to reduce the number of illegal migrations. There's currently, for example, the contraband that is smuggled in the country. We do the apprehension of those people. However, we do hand them to the SAPS. There's currently a lot of hijacking that are taking place, and most of these vehicles are taken outside. And as part of border safeguarding is to try to prevent these vehicles being taken outside. However, we are limited in terms of the space of our borders because you know, Kiboni, the South African borders are big. We currently deploying 15 subunits of the 22 that they should be deployed. So we are physically not able to cover everything. So you would imagine if the SANDF would be funded for the 22 subunits, it will make a big difference, though we still make it a difference. If you look at the numbers of the people that we arrest, we have participated in a number of operations with the SAPS, with other government departments. I think you'd recall recently in the pandemic, yes. And you know that we are also deployed, for example, with the SAPS on illicit or illegal mining. We are deployed with Eskom. And one would probably say, what are the successes of Eskom? I would tell you that the people do not know that there was a load shedding before the SANDF was deployed. There has not been a load shedding probably up until a month or two, and then it went away. Personally, from when one look at the perspective in terms of what we are doing, you'd attribute that the reduction in the load shedding has been through the deployment of the SANDF in the different Eskom facilities.
General, while you are there, what are you doing that's so different? That makes sure that you're achieving those things, especially for load shedding. I think it's a very volatile conversation to have in South Africa. We haven't had electricity for the longest time. You come here and you tell us that you played a significant role in that. What did you do that was so different? And we really appreciate that we have power now, and I'm sure that the viewers also appreciate that. But what was it that you did that was so different that we can implore even further in the future?
There is mainly one thing that we do in the different Eskom stations. We do patrols inside the station itself and on the exterior of the stations. I think one success that we have managed to do is the reduction in terms of the coal that is smuggled in and out. I know you'd ask why, General, do you say the coal smuggled in and out? It's because there's coal that is a fake coal that is actually procured and smuggled in, which you need to be able to detect it, because then if you smuggle a fake coal, you'd understand the implication. And then it's also about the diesel that they get smuggled. And then there's also other deterrences that our members do within the station itself. Because by being visible and doing patrols, you know that it is alleged some people they do sabotage of the station itself, but with the soldiers being there, so this has been reduced. Like I'm saying, it's unfortunate the owners of the station do
Yeah.
not come out and say what exactly is the impact the SANDF is making.
Yeah.
Maybe just to add,
Yeah.
SANDF create an enabling environment. It releases the police to swell their patrols, but equally SANDF, through their patrol, they become a deterrent and enable the entire force that deploy both the police and the defense, to either apprehend the suspect, but it create a very difficult situation for criminals, to be able to conduct their criminal business or enterprise in manners that they would do. So, SANDF, we can say by all measure of confidence that SANDF have really created an opportunity for the country so that social economic activity prevails. And today we've got a semblance of really lights are on in South Africa. And the image of South Africa abroad, it gets strengthened or enhanced, because everyone wants to come to a country where there is electricity.
Yes,
Business thrives.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
And I like the support that it speaks to a lot of departments that come together. And paint us a picture, General Sizani, of how many soldiers are we deploying in these operations, in internal operation? Because there's a perception that soldiers are just here and they're getting paid for absolutely nothing. But then we know the kind of work that you are doing requires a whole lot of soldiers. How many boots on the ground do we have with all the internal operations before we even get to the external operations?
No, thank you very much, ma'am. Ma'am, through the deployment papers, and we've informed Parliament, we've deployed for the purpose of this interview and for security of all the operations, we've deployed a reasonable number of people inside the country for both all of these two operations, illegal mining as well as Eskom, And I will allow, my colleague, the GOC, to give you the rundown of further specifications, but thanks.
Maybe to continue from what General Sizani has said is that, let me say that for border safeguarding, we have got more than 2,000 people that are deployed. And then you have got the Prosper, which is the illicit mining, as well as the Eskom deployments. We have got over 1,000 people that are deployed. I do not want to go to the specific in terms of the exact numbers. And this each deployment, Kiboni, it differs in terms of the requirement. One would recall that is during COVID, we almost had the whole defense force deployed, which is over the 30,000 people that were deployed. Actually, the whole defense force was put in on deployment. Those not in deployment, they were on standby. So as much as people see soldiers up and down, I think people make this, they fail to comprehend one thing. The defense force is big. You have got the people that are soldiers for deployment, the fighting soldiers, but you also have got the support as well. Support in terms of communication people, as support. You have got the logisticians, we have got your social workers, you have got people working at finance. So it is not necessarily that everybody is going to be there as being foot on the ground, but you'll see other people working from offices. And because you also need this balance. You need to have people that support people that are deployed, not necessarily directly from where people are deployed, but making other things to happen from the offices.
What I love about this discussion is that we are getting it from the horse's mouth. But let us address the elephant in the room, DRC. And let's start here. Take us through how we got there.
Okay. No, thank you very much, ma'am. I think you give us an opportunity to make the elephant dance.
Yes.
How do we find ourselves deployed in DRC? There are two streams of deployments in DRC. I will start with the low-hanging fruits, which is our deployment through MONUSCO, through United Nations. And the second iteration will be the current deployment that has gained prominence and flavor, throughout South Africa. And a number of experts have spoken about it. And us who deal with this operation on a day-to-day basis, will be able to put context to everything that has been said or not said. Let me start with the operations under the United Nations. Colleagues, you'll recall that flowing from our foreign policy, we as a country, we've said we cannot be an island of peace and prosperity in an ocean of instability. We therefore say also in concomitant to our foreign policy obligations that we must silence guns in Africa. Now, our foreign policy directs the military strategy to support the regional security. In support of the regional security, our obligations to international peace and security. First, South Africa has deployed under the auspices of United Nations in Eastern DRC, in MONUSCO. And we have troops that are deployed, about 1,250 or so troops that are deployed under MONUSCO, and all of those troops, they were deployed in various places. But our core mandate, it is a mandate encapsulated under the Force Intervention Brigade. And Force Intervention Brigade, it is an offensive part of that mission, whose task it is to protect civilians. It is to ensure that humanitarian assistance by the government of DRC is enhanced, and we therefore deployed in the Beni area, and together with some troops from Malawi and some troops from Tanzania. We have other elements that talk to the same deployment, the Tactical Intelligence Unit, which is composed by Tanzania and South Africa, and as well as the Quick Reaction Force. So you've got your battle group, which is your battalion, and all of those South Africa troops are doing a sterling job to silence guns in Africa, to ensure that that part of the Kivus, the North Kivu, they neutralized the negative forces in the main. They deal with a very elusive force there, which is ADF. ADF, it is a force similar to it is a threat similar to what we have in Mozambique, the Al-Sunna wa Jamaa. They all subscribed to the ideology of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and they are really creating a humanitarian pandemonium and a disaster there. And we have our troops that have been combating them. But it is a force that has gained prominence and experience. You'll recall the Force Intervention Brigade was the force that defeated M23 in 2012-2013. And it is a force that has been known in the world for expanding the bounds of peacekeeping in terms of the moving away from the traditional peacekeeping to robust peacekeeping. That's in MONUSCO. Now, I will briefly touch base with Summit DRC. Why Summit DRC? Colleagues, you will recall that the SADC Summit in August 2022, it called for the conduct of a field and assessment of the current situation in DRC after the elected government of DRC requested SADC as a member state to support, against the threat that was getting out of control of a number of negative forces. Negative forces are those forces, that work contradistinction with the country. Those forces that are attacking the civilian, that are creating more than 10 million humanitarian disaster and internally displaced people. Now, in January, February 2023, SADC sent a team of military experts, and South Africa's team was led by General Jacobi, the current force commander, and myself. And I think, we were part of the SADC assessment. We therefore assessed the situation. We came back and in May with the field assessment report presented to the SADC heads of state, and it was later the outcome of our presentation was adopted in Angola around 7 to 8 May 2023. The key tenets of that assessment, it says, indeed, the government of Congo require support and help by the member state. And you're well aware that in terms of the AU Constitutive Act and the SADC Mutual Defense Act, if one of the member state is under attack, the rest of SADC under the Mutual Defense Act must come to support.
General, just to interject there a little bit, you go to Congo. What do you find that makes you so worried or so unsettled that you need to intervene as the South African National Defence Force and send troops in there? What was it? What did it look like that got you so unsettled?
Thank you very much, ma'am. Let's go back to the foreign policy objectives of us. Foreign policy objective places a regard for South Africa to execute its international mandate in terms of peace and security. Our military strategy, the strategic objective of it, one of it is ensure regional security. Now, South Africa, under the auspices of a regional mechanism, which is SADC, has got an obligation to lend a hand. Now, DRC, first, I wish to state very unequivocal that the threat menacing the men and women in DRC, it is concrete, it is proper. Thousands of Congolese women, vulnerable groups are being killed, maimed, women are raped, and children are slaughtered. And South Africa will say once again, we cannot be an island of peace and prosperity in an ocean of instability. It therefore says our national interest is intertwined with the interest of Africa. If Congo is unstable, it has a direct impact on our border security, on our social security, because thousands and thousands of illegal refugees, thousands of arms and ammunition are going to go south. Therefore, South Africa have got an obligation to ensure that guns are silenced there, so that a Congolese child, the boy child, the girl child, grow up in an environment free of violence like we have in Africa. We are therefore saying we export peace as South Africa, which is a key principle and a key tenet of our constitutional, imperative, Now, let me take you through how this decision has been taken. The heads of state in May, after they were briefed fully in Namibia, and after the ministers have briefed them, after the chief of defenses of SADC have briefed them, they therefore made a determination that SADC must intervene, and a tailored force of plus minus 5,000 must be deployed to assist the government of Congo to neutralize the negative forces. In this case, it could be the Mai Mais, M23, Codeco, Red Tabara. It's a myriad of forces that are marauding and killing and maiming civilians in Congo. You'll further recall that Congo was facing a serious contested elections. Goma, where our troops are, it has some 3 arteries. We call it axis of advances. All routes to Goma were completely under the total control of all of these negative forces. There was a possibility that the eastern part of the DRC, the entire eastern part of DRC, is not going to vote. Therefore, SADC intervened, and South Africa provided a tailored support out of that 5,000 that that SADC have called for that deployment. I want to end there.
General, my question is that SADC as a organization, let me put it that way, why was it just 3 countries that are pledging its troops and its military and equipment? And we so happen to be the biggest one. Why was that? Why was it not equally distributed amongst SADC countries?
Well, let me come in there. I come in there because as part of a South Africa planner, I equally led the SADC planning process conference in June 8 to 13 in Kinshasa. And this question arises. Now, all countries were asked to pledge. Us as planners came up with a tailored force, and all of that force, the entire SADC region, the 14 countries were all asked to pledge. Many countries, for their own reasons, opted to pledge in different ways. Others committed pledges in monetary terms. So in terms of the access contribution, other countries said, we will provide monetary resources. Now, South Africa, Tanzania, Malawi, their initial position was that we, South Africa, Malawi, Tanzania, we have pledged in 2012 and 2013 the Force Intervention Brigade. And over years, we've requested the rotation by other countries, and it never came. The initial position of our country, which I was part of it, was that our Force Intervention Brigade, it is our initial pledge. However, time moved and there was no pledges. The 3 countries pledged a number of troops to augment that 5,000 that is required, because there was no other pledge from other countries. I think at a military level, we are not also able to really answer all of those reasons that why member states will agree or recommend an intervention and not pledge. But the lesson learned from us, it is that us as South Africa, we have committed our share of the bargain, and we may be able to speak about our own pledges and what impact has that pledge have made to the people of DRC. I thank you.